So moving on now to our final presentation this morning is from Olinda Santin, who's a senior lecturer in supportive cancer care in the School of Nursing and Midwifery at Queen's University, Belfast. Her background is in health psychology and public health, and her research primarily sort of focuses on co-design and involvement of stakeholders in the design of support services. So over to you now, Olinda. Thanks very much, Dave.
Hello everybody, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate today and to share with you our experience of working together as a group of carers, patients, researchers, healthcare professionals to develop online digital resources for families affected by cancer, and just to share our journey of how an idea that we developed together in Northern Ireland grew and took legs and shape, and how now is underway in Hanoi in Vietnam and also in Australia as well. So what we would like to do today as a team is just share with you our some of our experiences and what we've came up with. So our journey in developing online resources for families affected by cancer really started with a problem, or with an issue that we had conducted research from Queen's University Belfast, which told us that families were greatly affected by cancer, and that was both physically and psychologically. So if you care for someone that you love, be that a parent or a spouse or a brother or sister, anyone that we know that by going through that process that your health can be greatly affected. And what we find from that research is that there was a real mismatch between the issues that families faced and the services there to pick them up. So we knew that we had to work on developing or modifying the current cancer services to meet the needs of those families. So at that point in time, we took a very academic approach to this problem. We conducted a Cochrane systematic review where we pulled out all the literature to try and figure out what might be the best way to support families. And after all that sort of exhaustive research, we actually didn't find a solution. After conducting the systematic review, we still didn't know what the best ways to support families were. So at this point in time, as a team, we thought perhaps something that was delivered face-to-face, something that occurred over a number of months, something such as cognitive behavioral therapy that could be professional led, that could be a therapeutic intervention, could be a potential solution. And that's the idea that we were working with at the minute. And what we came out with in the end couldn't be further from that at all. So let me share that with you. So what we did was when we had that idea, we went off and joined the Cancer Research Consumer Forum, which are an amazing group of carers, patients at the Cancer Centre in Belfast. And this is a really highly motivated group where we went along and attended and shared our research problem and what we thought was a potential solution. And that evening, as I shared what I thought was a great idea, I could see and sense in the room, although they were very polite, but as we started to unpick and question and consider, we quickly started to realize that the resource of the solution that we were coming up with as an academic team was absolutely terrible and was never going to work. But what we did that night as a group of people from all different viewpoints and experiences, we didn't just say, oh, well, that's not the right answer, so we'll give up. But what we started to do was to talk about the problem, to really understand it, and then figure out a way that we could work together to come up with a solution. And that's how this project was born. That's how Cancer Care and Coping came about. That we decided from that night that we would work together as a large group of carers. So over 55 carers were involved throughout Northern Ireland, healthcare professionals from both the Belfast and Northern Trust, and academics would all commit to working together to develop a co-designed solution. So we made a commitment and had the motivation to work iteratively, pushing back and forth, listening to each other's experience, and shaping something until we developed our resource. So let me tell you a little bit about what we came up with, which you will see is very, very different from the idea of 12-week CBT face-to-face. Was that the resource should be online so that people can pick the resource up in the comfort of their own home. That information contained in the resource should be delivered to the cancer trajectory. So if we were diagnosis today, we didn't need to see scary information about advanced cancer or bereavement. That information contained within the results should be videoed so that when you're exhausted or highly emotional, that you can receive the information passively, that you don't need to exhaust yourself with reading. That any resource or supports that we give to families should contain top tips from people who've walked the walk and talked the talk. So giving top tips depending on where the person is in their cancer journey. That the resource should contain common emotions so that it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel frustrated, it's okay to say, why me? That those common emotions families felt that care should hear. That we also as a team work together to develop links and signpostings in the services. So that's very much by working together, we can see that what we came up with was a very different solution, but a solution that families wanted and needed, and one that they developed for carers, by carers. And just to give you a look at our resource, this is a resource, Cancer Care and Coping. It can be accessed online, so please feel free to look at it and use it. You can see that the resource is split into components and also contains information about finance and employment, supporting children, life after cancer. And when we look at it a little bit further, you can see that when we go into each section, then we can receive videoed information and signposting to services. So let's have a look at one of those videos so you can get an idea of what this co-design resource looks like. So let's hear some of the advice by our carers to other carers.
It will be a shock at the start and you're not thinking about what is happening in the future. But you have to come to the realization this is going to be a total different thing to what it was in the past.
When someone is first diagnosed and you could find that you maybe have 4 or 5 different hospital appointments all happening within a very short space of time. I remember Colin having 2 appointments in one day. They were both in the same place, they were hours apart. Looking back, trying to adjust appointments, not being afraid to say to someone, look, can we change the appointment? Can we get those appointments close together?
When we went for appointments, it was difficult to divide attention between us supporting Betty and absorbing the information we were given, and we actually did miss some of the information.
I could see a consultant, I could see him, I could tell he was talking to me, but I just couldn't make sense of what he was saying. And then I used to go home and get myself worked up because it was all, well, why didn't he ask this question and why didn't he ask that question? So after a while, I started recording the conversations we were having, and I was able to go home and listen and get more answers to my questions.
When you go to hospitals or anything like that there and you're seeing your consultants and nurses or whatever, if there's something you want to ask, do ask. If there's more than one question, try and write it down so it's fresh in your head.
Don't feel stupid. I think some of us still feel they're the professional and we are not, right? Don't feel like that. They're people just the same as us. If you don't understand something, ask them to explain.
Keep asking questions and don't be fobbed off with platitudes.
I can remember whenever Colin was first diagnosed and there was a stream of people starting to call at the house, you know, when people wanting to come and see him. And one of the things I would say is that it's so important that you have time, both as a couple and as a family, on your own to deal with what you've been told.
It's quite common for friends to go away and you think they don't care and you meet them on the street. As a carer, I have met people downtown and in shops that have sort of turned their back and have crossed the other side of the road, not because they don't like me, not because they don't care, but because they just don't know how to handle it or what to say. But it'll go away and these people will return into your life again, and you just don't hold it against them because they're just frightened.
So that is an example of our resource. So please feel free to access it and have a look, and watch the other videos and have a look at the rest of the content. So some reflections on us, from us as a team, is that I think this shows the importance that solutions are not always published, and that maybe sometimes we have to think of a different way of working and working together in order to come up with supports and services. As a researcher, I advise you, the other researchers, to leave your ego at the door. Sometimes we think we know all the answers, and that our viewpoint is perhaps the most important or the most knowledgeable. And I think that this project is the perfect example for that it's not, and that if we don't open our mindset and how we work and work together as a team, then we might not come up with the best ideas. The idea is to go straight to the experts, the people who have the most experience. And as a team, we wanted to reflect that it takes time. These projects aren't quick, and it takes time in order to work iteratively and to produce something together. And most importantly, bring biscuits. The things that we achieved and the problems that we overcome by putting the kettle on and having a good supply of baked goods is always important. Trevor, one of the carers, and his late wife, Carl, who is part of the picture at the top, wanted to share some of his experiences of developing this resource. He says it was a lot easier than he thought. Like once he started talking, it just flowed. Shortly after I was involved, Carl died, but thankfully she got a sneaky early peek at the project and was shown our videos on the website, and she was delighted. So if you like it, it's not a memorial to her. It's a way of showing respect to charity, to be of use to someone who's going through the same thing. Carers tend to be forgotten about. If one person only got one tip, it was worth it. So that's the story of how we work together to develop a resource in Belfast, but that's not where the story ends. The power of this co-designed resource has been taken up in a number of countries, particularly Australia and in Vietnam, have really moved down the road of developing their version of cancer care and coping. But let me share with you some of our experiences of developing this project in Vietnam. So when we released Cancer Care and Coping, our colleagues in the cancer hospitals in Vietnam thought that perhaps cancer care and coping might be a good approach also that they used within their hospitals. Patients, there are large numbers of patients who are diagnosed with cancer, and carers carry a great burden and responsibility and do so with very little support and information. So when our colleagues seen and heard of our resource, they wondered if they could modify and adapt in a culturally specific way to develop a resource to support carers. So using the same approach that we did in Northern Ireland, we have been working with the team to develop the Vietnamese cancer care and coping. So it's an example or picture of some of our team, and this is a team in Ho Chi Minh City of patients, carers and healthcare professionals, and ourselves as a research team. So over 100 carers throughout Vietnam, 100 carers, healthcare professionals and patients have been working together since 2018 to develop online supports for families. So what we've been up to, in 2018 during the summer, we worked together to develop a methodology. So we all sat down and thought about what types of questions we should ask, how we should ask them, where we should conduct our interviews, and the insights that patients and families give us about how the best way to do that and make them feel, by helping people to feel comfortable and open enough to talk, was fascinating. In the next stage, we travelled around Vietnam, really listening to the views and experiences of families affected by cancer to understand the issues and the problems that they face. In March last year, just before lockdown, we were in Vietnam, and we flew different people from across Vietnam, from the different regions, to Hanoi, in which we worked together for 3 days to help to start to develop or pull out what the content of the Vietnamese cancer care and coping would be. And then presently, we're trying to do that online during COVID to help build our resource. And it's taken shape. Our filming has been a little bit slower, but we're getting there, and we hope to have this project finished in February 2022. So some reflections on us as a team is that it's been one of the most important things as an international team is to take time to get to know each other. It's not all about formal meetings. Actually having the crack and doing fun things is really important. Playing sport, meeting each other's families has been really important to reduce power dynamics and really get to know each other and understand each other's culture. Eating together is a huge part of that as well. Eating together is where sometimes we have the most fascinating conversations, where we understand who each other are and what we're about, that we share issues and stories in relation to culture, but by building relationships, particularly when we're a team from all different viewpoints, but also cross countries, that we can really reduce some of those power dynamics. Carers from Vietnam wanted you to know that power dynamics can be a challenge. At times they felt shy or embarrassed to talk out in front of particularly foreign researchers or healthcare professionals. But by doing these activities and building relationships, that became easier over time. That there are a number of barriers to participation for carers, particularly in relation to travel and finance, with a lot of people living in poverty. And carers wanted to share that it's important to reflect on these things, to make things as easy as possible for people to take part and be involved in the development of service. It's also important to be respectful of time, that everyone's time is important, so that everybody should be in discussions in terms of dates and times, that we shouldn't just drop deadlines on people saying that, well, we have a grant in tomorrow, I need you to read this, that we must work together and be respectful of everybody's time, and that design isn't only for the research team, that we all must work together. Just to finish, to share a quote from one of the carers. We want to share our stories with healthcare staff. Share makes us feel better, as we know we help others by our stories. If you need insights or information from us, it's not difficult. I think it's an advantage doing research with carers to inform the development of interventions. It empowers us as carers, as well as having good supports. And here are some examples of what the current online resource, Vietnamese Cancer Care and Coping, looks like. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.